Hi. For this exercise, we'll be working on a drawing that we've already done, or if you don't have that drawing, you could start by constructing a simple room interior. I used a 3" by 5" rectangle that surrounds my central vanishing point, and make sure you've got plenty of room. I've zoomed in on this version, so I actually have more room on my paper than you can see in this video, but I wanted to zoom in on the part of the image where the action is going to be taking place so that you can see it a little bit closer up. So we'll start out by adding a skylight on the ceiling plane, and this is just the same as cutting an opening in a wall or in the floor or in the back wall. We're going to be using the same two types of line that we used when we constructed the ceiling plane in the first place. So in this case, we used horizontal lines for the back wall of the ceiling, and then we were using vanishing lines for the right and left sides of the ceiling. So when we cut the opening in the ceiling plane to make a skylight, we need to follow those same two types of lines. So we've got two vanishing lines first, and you can decide where you want the skylight. If you position the skylight to the right of the central vanishing point, we're only going to be able to see two sides of the opening. If you want to center the skylight, like I'm going to do, we'll actually be able to see three surfaces of the thickness of the opening. So it's up to you where you want to position it, but realize that if you put your skylight in a slightly different spot than I am putting mine, yours may not look quite the same. It may still be constructed perfectly correctly, and that's great, but don't expect it to necessarily have the same angles that mine has unless you position yours exactly in the same spot that I position mine. So I'm not going to center it because I want to show you what happens when it's slightly off center from where this central vanishing point is. I'm going to shift it a little bit to the right side so that you can see how that affects the angles that are coming off the skylight. So I'm going to first use a horizontal line this will end up becoming the back edge of the skylight. And again, I'm not worried about trying to center it in the ceiling even. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw the right and the left side of the skylight. So it'll be the sides that are moving away from us in space on the ceiling plane. So these are vanishing lines. They have to line up with our central vanishing point. So there's the left side, and then we'll bring in another angle on the right side. These angles are not necessarily going to be symmetrical, so don't expect them to be. They're not just random 45-degree angles. They are vanishing lines that lead to our central vanishing point. I might just draw that in so you can be sure that you understand. That's how we found those angles. And then you decide how big you want the skylight to be. The further out you bring it towards us, the more distortion we'll feel. So I'm going to just try to keep mine pretty small and pretty far back toward the back end of the room. And we can erase any extra lines that extend beyond our basic trapezoid shape. So we've already used our horizontal lines, we've already used our vanishing lines. So the third type of line that we'll be using to show the thickness of the depth of the ceiling is the only type of line that's left over, and those are our vertical lines. So I'm going to draw a dot on the two corners that we're using to bring in those verticals, and we'll only see it on this back side of the skylight. So we'll just extend a vertical line straight up from those points. I'll use my triangle to kind of help me keep those truly straight up and down. And you want them both to extend up the same distance. So I'm just kind of estimating right now, and I will clean up whatever is left over. And then this one should also be a horizontal line. So this is just the sort of the drywall well that the skylight is constructed from. So this little rectangle that I'm drawing in is just sort of the thickness of the ceiling moving up. We haven't completed our drawing yet, so erase any extra bits of line that are extending beyond your rectangle. And then from the top two corners of this rectangle, we're going to be adding in two more vanishing lines. So it must lead to your central vanishing point. It's not just some arbitrary angle. and that line just sort of disappears because this is where the hole in the ceiling obscures what's actually going on up there. So we wouldn't see any, this should not meet at this corner. This just meets on this flat edge somewhere, and yours might look a little different than mine depending where you placed your skylight compared to where the central vanishing point is. So that's a really easy thing to do, put a skylight in. You could do the exact same thing on the floor plane to create, a sunken tub or some other trap door in a treehouse or something like that. So this is kind of a fun, easy thing to do, is add a skylight. The next thing I want to show you about is adding a double door, and we're going to be using our X to make sure that both doors are the same size in perspective. So again, because this is a plane that's moving away from us, we can't just use our ruler and mark off, a 1-inch wide door and another 1-inch wide door, or that second door that's smaller is going to appear way too big. It's going to, we know that the room's getting smaller, but if that door is still as fat as the one that's close to us, it will seem distorted. So we have to use perspective to get these doors in there. I'm kind of estimating how tall the door might be on the back wall because I have this guy standing here, and then I'm going to project a perspective line out onto the side wall to help me make sure that my doors are a believable height on that side wall. So again, we kind of tracked that height over into the room towards us. It gets taller and taller as it gets closer to us. And I'm going to keep these two doors way back toward the back wall so there's less distortion. I'm going to make both doors fit into a 1-inch wide spot. So I'm just going to use my ruler for now. But again, two doors will fit into this space. So I'll darken in the top plane now that I know exactly where that door will be. And we're going to use the X system to divide that foreshortened plane in half. So these are just measuring guides. You can draw them lightly. The X shouldn't show up in the final drawing, or not, there should not be a dark X there necessarily, but I'm going to show you how I constructed it. And then it's just really simple. You're just going to go straight through that X, through this middle point with a vertical line, and use might want your triangle to help you keep that straight, or use T-square. I've got. Alright, so we've got two doors. You can put a doorknob on there if you want to. What we're going to do is swing the second door open. So that'll make it a little more interesting. We'll be able to see that second room through this hole. And the other thing is, we're still going to try to keep the door in 1-point perspective. So when we swing that door open, we have to swing it either 180 degrees so it's flat against the wall, or we need to swing it just 90 degrees so it comes straight out into the room if we want to still be able to use 1-point perspective to show the thickness of the door. So we're going to choose the second option, where we're imagining there's a hinge on this side of the door, and we're just going to swing it open so that it's swinging into the room, which will allow us to see a little bit through this second doorway. So we already know how tall that door needs to be on the side where the hinge would be. So we can just extend horizontal lines straight out from that point, and that makes it appear that the door has just swung open into the room. So I'm just sort of estimating here how big that door might be. I would like it to look like this person could fit through that doorway, and this door is a little closer to us than the position of this person's feet. So I might make it a little bit wider than I've got it already. Yeah, I'll go a little bit wider, maybe just 1 inch wide. And we're bringing this base of the door using a true horizontal line, try to keep it as square as possible, swinging it out into the room. So this door has no thickness to it yet. It still looks like it's made out of just like a piece of paper or something that's not very believable yet. So we're going to be adding some thickness at the end of the door. Now the door itself is not foreshortened, we're just looking flat on at it, but we would be able to see a little sliver of the side of the door. And it's so far away from us and it's so foreshortened that it's just going to be a tiny little sliver. So from the bottom right corner of the door and from the top right corner of the door, I'd like you to bring 2 lines to your central vanishing point. And that will make it appear that we're seeing the end plane of the door. So we'll only be darkening just a tiny bit of it, but I'll draw a dotted line so that you understand how I came up with those angles. The top of the door is closer to our eye level than the bottom of the door, so the angle here is going to be less steep. It'll be closer to a horizontal line, but it is still a vanishing line. It's leading down here. If your door is quite a bit shorter and it happens to fall right on our vanishing line, if the top of your door is way down here, then you won't see any angle, unfortunately. It will just be a straight line, because even though it's a vanishing line, because you're on the eye level line, it's just still going to be a horizontal line. So hopefully you made your door a little bit higher than your horizon line so that you can see some angling downwards at that front edge. And then to finish it off, we just add a second line that shows the thickness of the door, and I'm keeping mine super thin so that it looks more believable. Now I want you to show the second room through this hole, if we can, to show that this door is open but this one is still closed. And to do that, we will extend this horizontal line into the opening of the doorway, and we'll do it at the bottom too. So that shows us the thickness of the wall. So we use a horizontal line right at the base of your door, and you can decide how thick you want that wall to be. I'm going to make mine just maybe 1/4 inch. And then to finish that plane off, we just come back in with a true vertical. This is just like when we cut an opening in our box the other day. And then from these two corners of that little skinny rectangle that we just drew, so that the bottom left corner and the top left corner, we're going to continue to finish off the top of the door and the bottom of the door using our central vanishing point. So we're going to be drawing lines from those two dots that I just drew leading to our central vanishing point. And since the top of the door is closer to our eye level than the bottom of the door, this ends up being a more foreshortened plane. It's a little bit flatter angle than this one. So that's totally normal to have all of these be slightly different thicknesses. So I do want this to feel like there's really a room in there. So what I'm going to do is extend the back wall of the room that we're in into this opening so that it feels like that wall is continuing into that empty space. And you might be able to see the top of your wall through that opening too. Mine's a little bit too low, but if you made a great big doorway, or if you drew your doorways closer to the edge of your paper, you should be able to see that top of the wall through your doorway. So draw that in if your door is in that situation. So for doorknobs, I think about doorknobs being about hip height. You could add a little doorknob in. You want to try to draw it in perspective. And then this one, to make sure they feel like they're in the same spot, what we could do is we could trace the height of the door back over to the side wall, the height of the doorknob, I should say. And then from that point, we'll bring it out in perspective so that we know how high that doorknob should be on that second door that's still closed. So doorknobs, if you had lots of doors along this wall, all the doorknobs could be along this dotted line. So this doorknob, if we were to see it, would be a little bit more of a side view, so we'd maybe draw it like that, where we see it as an ellipse. Okay. And if shading helps you understand the forms a little bit better, feel free to do that. A little bit of hatching to show the depth there. So these would be planes that are going up and down. These would also be planes that are just going straight up and down. And this one as well. And then the glass would be here. We'll stop at that point.